Well, within lesson 4, we have a bonus video today, and it's called A Well-Ordered Family. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to take the concept that we learned this week and this idea that we are created to be in relationship with other people, that God did not want us to be lone rangers, that he wants us to have intentional relationships where we can speak into one another's lives, we can challenge and encourage and instruct. And we've learned that those kinds of relationships take effort to develop. And so that same concept applies in the home. So I wanted to take a few minutes to look at what the Bible has to say about what are the roles in the family and what does that look like for husbands and wives? What does it mean? What are our roles supposed to be as parents? And even that of what are the role of kids in the home? So let's turn to Ephesians chapter 5 and let's talk to husbands for a few minutes and see what Paul has to say. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. So husbands, we see this very important theme here in these verses about how you love your wives. And we see this direct comparison that as Christ loved the church, which was a selfless, sacrificial love, that he ultimately gave his life for us, as we learn in 101, is how husbands are to love their wives. So husbands, if you're being intentional in your role in the home, it's in how you lead through your love. Are you selfish in the way you love and how you lead in the home? Or are you selfless and sacrificial? That certainly needs to be the goal. I know some days we're better at that than others, but clearly, husbands, your main role is leading your family in how you love and to want to nurture and to put your wife's needs above your own. Okay, so let's look and see what it has to say to wives then. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. So wives, we see this concept of submission and the idea that the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. And before I go on to explain some of that, I just want you to remember what we just talked about to husbands, that if they are leading the way God's intended, then their love is supposed to be selfless and sacrificial and putting you above themselves. So in light of that, then, wives, our role is about submitting and respecting that our husbands are the leaders in the home. That's their God-given responsibility. And that our job then is to encourage that, to support that, to do everything we can to encourage our husbands along in leading. And again, that is a much easier thing to do when husbands are loving the way Christ loved the church. Then that makes it easier for us. But nonetheless, our God-given role is about submission and respect. And that doesn't mean that you are in a one-down position. That doesn't mean that we are less than. Certainly in our culture, that doesn't strike a good chord. But it's because they don't understand the context of these verses of what that really means. But wives, you are equals to your husbands, but you are different in your function and in your role in the home. And so that's important. So husbands, you're leading in how you love, and wives, you are respecting and submitting and letting your husbands lead and not trying to vie or compete for that position, but encouraging them as they lead. Okay, so now let's look at what it says in the role as the role of parents. It says in chapter 6, verse 4, fathers, don't exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. And we also see in the book of Proverbs, train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. So as your role as parents, be so intentional about how you set up your home. Have structure, have consistent bedtimes and nap times, and eat dinner and meals together as much as you can. Do things as a family, play games, spend time together nurturing those relationships. But also spiritually, remember that you have a role of training up your kids in the way you want them to go. So they aren't naturally going to know how to pray or to read their Bible. But if you lead them through that, if you lead by example as they see you pursuing God, as you create opportunities to pray together as a family, to read the Bible together. I don't want to forget to say we have great resources on our website from our kids' church curriculum, that the lessons that they learn, the Bible stories, the memory verses that they learn on a Sunday morning, you can do activities throughout the week to support and encourage their knowledge. You can go right on our website to what's happening this month in kids' church and pull off those kinds of resources. But the point is, be intentional about training up your children in the direction that you want them to go, so that when they're old enough to make a decision for Christ, that they understand who he is and what it means for him to be the Lord of their life as he is yours. And so lastly, then, I just want to point out, what are the role of kids in the home? Well, children, in chapter 6, verse 1, it says, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right, and to honor your father and your mother. So children, your primary role in the home is about obeying. And so that is your primary responsibility. So obey your parents, listen to the rules, obey them, and don't challenge them. So if we have all of these things going together, and husbands, you're being intentional in the way you're loving and leading your wives. Wives, as you're being intentional in supporting and respecting and submitting to that and encouraging your husband and, strengthening him in that role, making him better at that role. And as you're partnering in the way you're being intentional as parents, and if children are obeying, great things can happen. Your family can be moving in a wonderful direction, and you can all be seeking the Lord together, and it'll be for the strength and honor of for God, but also for peace in your home.